So let's look at the requirements of the AI 102 exam in more detail. To get to this page, you simply enter the term AI-102 into your favorite search engine, and this Microsoft Learn website should be one of the top results. So this is the official landing page for the AI 102 Designing and Implementing a Microsoft AI Solution exam. Now, as the title implies, this is a hands-on certification expecting you to know how to use the Cognitive Services APIs. So if you read this first set of paragraphs here, you'll find out about what the exam aims to test you on and who the ideal candidates are. So these are for people who build, manage, and deploy AI solutions using Azure's Cognitive Services and Applied AI services. And these are people who work with solution architects to translate their vision with data scientists, data engineers, IoT specialists. Obviously, the full team is required in order to build a really effective AI model and to deploy AI services into your solutions. There is a language requirement, is either C# or Python, to be able to call some of this code. Now, the APIs are fairly standard. These are called REST-based APIs, which you can, even if you're not using these languages, you can obviously just call the URLs with the appropriate parameters to get this. There are also support for other languages, but that is not tested on this exam. Don't be too put off by the language requirement, but it is something that you should be somewhat proficient in. We're not going to teach the basics of programming in this course, obviously. The exam does get updated from time to time, so do check the landing page to see if there's any updates that are coming up before you take the exam. Microsoft recently moved where the study guide and the exam requirements are. This AI 102 study guide link is now what we're going to look at to see what's on the exam. Before we do that, we can scroll down here. We can see this exam is available in multiple languages. The price is $165 US. It is localized, so if you are coming from a country that does not use US dollars, it's going to be in your country. Some countries have cheaper prices based on the local economy. This is the button that says Schedule Exam, where you go to book the exam either at a testing center near you or you can take it from home. The skills measured, there are 5 overall skills, and you can see they're fairly evenly divided, most of them being 15 to 25% of the exam. So 5 almost evenly divided sets of skills. We're going to cover all 5 of these in this course. There's multiple sections for each of these skills. So let's look at this in more detail. To do that, I'm going to click on this AI 102 study guide link. So Microsoft recently changed the format of this document. They've got more helpful information, how the certifications renew every year, basically, but the renewal is so much easier. It's online. You have to take it at your leisure. You have 6 months to take the online certification renewal. It doesn't cost you anything, so don't worry about the renewal part. If you do require extra time, so let's say you have assistive devices or your English is not your first language or the test is not available in your language, you can request extra time, although hopefully you won't end up needing it. So here are the skills measured, the 5 that we just talked about. Down here is where we get into the real details of what is on this exam. So the first section on Azure Cognitive Services is pretty overview, pretty generic, and so it's being able to look at the various categories of services and understanding what service you need to help you to achieve your goal. Setting up the basic Cognitive Services account, the concept of account keys. Each of the cognitive services have their own API that could have their own keys, or there's this overall Cognitive Services account. So you can see it says create a Cognitive Services resource. And so it is imperative that you get hands-on practice to getting an Azure account and creating a Cognitive Services resource. We're going to go through that in this course as well. Another thing that is pretty helpful is being able to run cognitive services on your local environment, even within Azure, on containers. And so if there are now a limited set of APIs that are available to be containerized, but if you don't want your private data to be sent over the open internet for the analysis in the cloud, you can run it locally in your own data center on a limited basis. It also can be cheaper because you're not paying for bandwidth. It's a different pricing model. You're still paying for it, but it's, again, bandwidth would be the most of the savings. Of course, speed as well. Now, we just talked about how some of these things are changing. Computer Vision API contains the ability to recognize brands, content, thumbnails. We do know that the celebrity recognition is being restricted, and so some of these things are not yet caught up to the changes to the API that Azure made by policy. Going down here, extracting text from images, pretty straightforward. Detecting faces, that still is obviously available in terms of detecting that there are faces in the image. It's really just the recognition of the faces that is being restricted. So we go down, we see lots more. The custom vision services where you train the computer vision on your own data, right? So computer vision is really cool in that Microsoft has trained their API. They built their own AI model on their own data, and you're just calling it. There's no setup required. You can start using the computer vision API immediately. The custom vision service requires you to have data, could be images in this particular case, and you train the custom vision service based on your images, classify them, tag them with appropriate labels, and then you can, once you've done that, reuse that model on future data. Object detection, being able to recognize what's in a photo, the concept of bounding boxes to chunk out what's in a particular photo, whether it's a car, a tree, a bicycle, etc. The video analyzer service is basically what the photo service is for videos. Makes sense. And remember, I said that text analysis is now called a language service, and so all of these things are still valid. Processing key phrases, processing sentiment. The speech service is the text to speech, speech to text, etc. Translation is pretty advanced these days. It used to be kind of clunky. Even 10 years ago, getting computer translation was more literal. Now computers understand context, they understand intent, they understand slang words and things like that. And so the translation service is pretty advanced. All right, again, Lewis service has been renamed as the language understanding service, and so being able to build your own language understanding model through this language service is up in here. Question answering service, what used to be Q&A maker, being able to push this service towards your website, towards documentation, building a knowledge base based on pre-existing content, and then being able to tweak that, edit that, add this concept of hello, how are you, having a nice day, chit chat, it's called, things like that. So you can build your chatbot based on the pre-existing documentation. Search is obviously, it's part of this knowledge mining system. And cognitive search is the ability to look at a disparate amount of data from videos and documents, PDFs, Word documents, text documents, databases, being able to build a single search engine off of that, and then being able to run a query and get some data based on the contents of a blob container, for instance. Going down, we're talking more about this knowledge store. And so there are some advanced topics on object projections, table projections on this knowledge store that'll be part of this exam. And indexing, re-indexing, scheduling indexing, that's all important for knowledge stores. Last section, I believe, is the conversational AI. And so this is where you can build quite a complex chatbot, even that has levels to it, where the person asks to buy something, you can ask them what size, they tell them the size, they ask them what color, and you're basically building a complex based on question and answer, building to an order or a particular result, handling multiple branches. And so if the conversation can go a couple different ways, your bot can get quite complex. And so this is the conversational log. We also have this bot framework SDK where you can build chatbots into other AI services as well. And so this becomes an actual program that you're running in the background that interfaces with bots as one of its inputs. The bot framework composer, obviously, to build these complex conversational bots. And finally, like I said, integrating vision services and speech services and things into a bot. So now you can have a bot that speaks to you and then understands what you're saying and can derive the intent from that understanding and extra. So those are the topics of the exam. It's quite detailed, and but don't worry, you're going to get some practice in. You're going to get hands-on here, and we're going to go through with examples, real GitHub examples for a lot of these things that we can go on and build them ourselves, and then that will lead to the understanding of how it works and hopefully a successful pass of the certification test.